When celebrated environmental scientist Sabrina Palmer uncovers that the prestigious award honoring her breakthrough research was funded by the very corporation poisoning the planet, she is thrust into a shadow war of corporate sabotage, betrayal, and dangerous secrets. With her career, reputation, and life on the line, Sabrina must navigate a treacherous maze of corruption where every ally could be an enemy, and the truth is, the deadliest weapon of all. The Cambridge lecture hall brimmed with soft murmurs and the subtle tapping of shoes on marble as the audience settled into their seats. Sabrina Palmer stood backstage, fingers lightly brushing the edge of her notes, though she hardly needed them. Her keynote lecture was etched into her memory like a scar. "You're up in 60 seconds," a technician whispered. Sabrina nodded, drawing in a breath as the MC introduced her. "Please welcome the 2025 Global Chemistry Laureate, Professor Sabrina Palmer." Thunderous applause echoed through the hall as Sabrina stepped onto the stage. Her dark curls framed her poised face, and her sharp hazel eyes swept across the sea of expectant faces. But as the spotlight bathed her in golden light, Sabrina felt the old hollowness return. She began to speak eloquently, passionately about sustainable chemistry, biodegradable polymers, and the future of environmental remediation. The words flowed, captivating her audience, but deep within she remained a distant observer, disconnected from the applause. The moment the lecture ended, she was swarmed. A student wanted a photo, another asked for a recommendation letter, and an eager postdoc praised her latest research on microplastic breakdown enzymes. She nodded, smiled, and gave clipped responses. It wasn't until she slipped into the back hallway that she let her shoulders sag. Waiting there, like a shadow resurrected from the past, stood her mother, Elaine Palmer. "Congratulations, Sabrina," she said, her voice smooth but brittle. Time had not dulled her commanding presence, nor had it warmed the cold steel in her eyes. She wore a burgundy suit and pearl earrings, the exact outfit Sabrina remembered from the day she was disowned. Sabrina froze. "What are you doing here?" Elaine gave a tight smile. "The better question is, why wouldn't I be here? It's your big day. You made it pretty clear I wasn't your daughter when you threw me out." Elaine flinched ever so slightly, then regrouped. "That was a long time ago. Not long enough." Elaine's eyes flicked toward the stage. "This award, do you even know who funded it?" A chill crept up Sabrina's spine. "It's a public grant from the Global Science Endowment." Elaine folded her arms, "which is managed by Mosaic Fertilizers." Silence fell like a stone. "Dad's company?" Sabrina asked, the words tasting like ash. Elaine nodded. "Your father sits on the board. He's the one who approved the funding." Sabrina backed a step. "No, that can't be. Mosaic is an industrial polluter. They've dumped phosphate sludge across the developing world. How could... You're benefiting from it now." Sabrina stared at her mother, the weight of betrayal suddenly anchoring her to the floor. Mosaic's name had been absent from the paperwork, likely concealed behind dummy foundations. How could she not have known? Elaine placed a hand on Sabrina's arm. It was meant to comfort, but felt more like restraint. "This is your opportunity to come home. Let us help. Mosaic can fund your lab, your students, all the resources you've begged grants for. We can give them." Sabrina pulled her arm away. "No, I won't be part of your empire. I won't sell out my values." Elaine's lips thinned. "You think you've made it on your own, but everything has a price, even integrity." She turned and walked away, leaving Sabrina trembling beneath the corridor's sterile lights. Later that night, Sabrina sat alone in her small Cambridge flat. The award plaque lay on the coffee table like an accusation. She opened her laptop and began pulling up Mosaic Fertilizer's history, corporate filings, environmental lawsuits, offshore subsidiaries. One shell corporation stood out, Argenia Holdings, a Luxembourg-based investment entity. Mosaic had funneled over $200 million through it to philanthropic grants in science and technology. Argenia funded the Global Science Endowment. They had set a trap, a gilded one. She dug deeper, tracing the flow of capital. Then something caught her eye. An unassuming payment to a lab in Jakarta. Her lab, A month before the award, her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Kamal, her lab assistant in Jakarta. Urgent. We found anomalies in the biopolymer sequence. I think it's been tampered with. Someone added a contaminant signature. Call ASAP. Sabrina's blood ran cold. The project they were working on, the one that won her the award, was compromised? She hit call. Dr. Kamal, what's going on? I ran a triple check. The enzyme sequences we submitted were altered in the final grant dataset. They look artificial. Now, as if we were faking the results. But we didn't. You know we didn't. Could it be sabotage? Kamal hesitated. It's more than that. The only access to that version of the data would have come from within the endowment's server. Or yours. Sabrina rubbed her forehead. They're setting us up. Discredit the research, burn the credibility, bury the scandal. Kamal's voice dropped. Sabrina, someone's watching us. I had a break-in at the lab. Nothing stolen, but the server was accessed. Sabrina's hand trembled. She looked at her award again, at the golden plate engraved with her name, a mirror reflecting a lie. 3 days later, Sabrina flew to Geneva for an emergency ethics panel review. Rumors of research fraud had already begun to circulate. The panel was held in a sterile boardroom in a towering glass building. Around the oval table sat 7 people, scientists, lawyers, ethicists. They asked pointed questions, showed printouts of altered data, and hinted that Sabrina's award might be suspended. She countered each accusation with logic and calm fury, presenting backup files, email trails, and timestamps. But the shadow of Mosaic loomed large. Afterward, as she walked out, a soft voice called to her. Professor Palmer, a tall man in a slate-gray suit, approached. Mid-40s, neatly trimmed beard, intense eyes. I'm Julian Leclerc, investigative journalist. Sabrina's eyes narrowed. Now's not the time. He held up a badge. I've been following Mosaic for 5 years. You're not the first they've funded, and not the first they've targeted. She stopped. What do you mean? He handed her a folder. Inside were photographs, documents, and transcripts. Names she didn't recognize. Scientists, professors, even whistleblowers. All had received Mosaic-affiliated awards. All were later discredited or quietly vanished. From public academia. Julian said quietly, they don't fund excellence. They fund silence. And when excellence refuses to be silent, they erase it. Sabrina's mouth went dry. Julian stepped closer. But you're different. You already survived being cut off by them once. You've got nothing to lose. And I think you're ready to fight. Sabrina closed the folder. How do we start? Julian Leclerc's folder weighed heavily in Sabrina's satchel as she returned to Cambridge. The documents were more than mere evidence. They were a breadcrumb trail of ruined lives. Names she had never heard before, yet whose paths now eerily mirrored her own. Researchers smeared by whisper campaigns, projects that mysteriously failed just as they neared breakthroughs, and funding pulled at critical moments without explanation. She couldn't sleep. The documents lived beneath her pillow, and in her dreams, they became tombstones. By morning, she was back at the lab. Dr. Kamal greeted her with a wan expression. We isolated the contamination vector. It wasn't just in the dataset. The enzyme batch itself, the sample sent to the review panel, was tainted. Sabrina swore under her breath, but we triple-sealed that batch. Kamal nodded. I know. The tampering happened during transit, or by someone with clearance. High clearance. She sat at her desk, breathing shallowly. This wasn't just character. Assassination. They were manufacturing the evidence. And she had unknowingly helped build the platform. She pulled out her laptop, opened the folder Julian had given her, and began cross-referencing names. She found Dr. Hideo Sakamoto, a climatologist whose career collapsed after data irregularities surfaced in a high-profile ocean acidification study. And Dr. Mira Alvi, a Pakistani physicist who vanished after accusing a corporate board of manipulating renewable energy trials. Both had been funded through Mosaic-linked endowments. All had disappeared into obscurity. All had made the mistake of thinking brilliance alone could shield them. Julian met her 2 days later in a quiet tea house tucked between Cambridge alleyways. "They've started scrubbing your search results," he said without preamble. "Google your name now, and the top results are all about inconsistencies in your enzyme trial." "I noticed," she replied, sipping mint tea. He slid over a thumb drive. "I've got a source. Internal. Used to work at Argenia Holdings. He claims Mosaic's real play isn't the discrediting, it's the leverage." "Leverage?" Julian nodded. "They engineer scandal, then offer the lifeline. A new grant, legal counsel, and an exclusive lab partnership. All strings attached. They don't want you gone, Sabrina. They want you owned." Sabrina leaned back, breath caught somewhere between fury and fear. "I want to meet him," she said. "The source." Julian hesitated, then finally said, "He's in Brussels. You can't contact him digitally. Paper only. He's paranoid, for good reason." In Brussels, Sabrina wore oversized sunglasses and kept her head low. The meeting was arranged in an antiquarian bookshop that smelled of must and cedar. The man was already waiting, mid-60s, tall and gaunt with long fingers stained by nicotine. "You're the Palmer girl," he said in a rasp. "I'm Professor Palmer," he smiled. "Not for long, if Mosaic gets its way." He handed her a slim envelope. Inside were handwritten notes, financial charts, and a dossier marked Project Sumerian. "What is this?" "The reason they care about your research. Your biopolymer enzyme isn't just green chemistry. It's the basis for a new soil decontamination system. If deployed globally, it would invalidate Mosaic's entire phosphate control model. Billions in contracts." Sabrina's eyes widened. "They're sabotaging it to keep control of the contamination," he nodded. "Pollution is profitable. Cleanup is competition." Back in Cambridge, Sabrina's mind raced. She called Julian. "We need a leak, a real one, big enough to hit mainstream." Julian was quiet, then said, "There's a science expo next month. Global leaders, press. Mosaic has a booth. What if your research were verified, live, by a neutral body?" Sabrina nodded. "We expose them by proving the truth." She began rebuilding, working 16-hour days with Kamal and a trusted skeleton crew. They ran new trials, this time with encrypted documentation, sealed lab access, and daily off-site backups. The results were irrefutable. Meanwhile, Julian prepped a documentary short. Intercutting testimonies from ruined scientists, whistleblowers, and live surveillance footage from a prior Mosaic data breach. Sabrina provided voiceover. At the expo in Berlin, Mosaic's pavilion glowed with hollow polish. Sabrina's booth, minimalist and quiet, attracted little attention at first. Then the trial demonstration began. Crowds formed as Sabrina narrated the breakdown of industrial sludge using her re-engineered enzymes. Independent scientists verified results in real time. Word spread. Journalists swarmed. The data, live-streamed, went viral within hours. Then Julian released the documentary. That night, Mosaic's booth was empty. 3 weeks later, Sabrina sat before an ethics panel again, this time as a vindicated researcher. Charges dropped, award reinstated. Her name cleared, but something deeper had shifted. Elaine Palmer called. "You've made quite the mess." Sabrina smiled into the phone. "No, I've cleaned one up." Elaine's voice was icy. "You'll regret this." "Maybe, but not tonight." She hung up, looking at the award plaque again. This time it wasn't a mirror of deceit. It was a crack in the facade, the first of many. A month had passed since Sabrina's press conference ignited a storm across global media. Mosaic's inner machinery, once untouchable, was hemorrhaging denials, apologies, and carefully phrased admissions. But beneath the surface, something more sinister stirred. Julian's office was now their makeshift war room. Maps, redacted reports, and encrypted messages lined the walls. "We got something," Julian said one morning, scrolling through an anonymous data drop. "It's from a source called Galileo, claims to have access to Mosaic's archived executive memos, especially those regarding Argenia Holdings and their ties to illegal dumping sites in Africa and Southeast Asia." Sabrina leaned over his shoulder. "Can we verify it?" We're working with a Swiss cybersecurity firm. Early checks look promising. If this is real, it'll not only corroborate Henrik's files, it'll implicate board members in criminal negligence. Evelyn called that night, her voice brittle. They're unraveling. The chairman resigned. 2 board members are under house arrest in Brussels. And, Sabrina, they're blaming my division for the whole cover-up. I'm going to be named in the internal inquiry. Sabrina was quiet for a long moment. Come clean, Evelyn, publicly. You helped us. You can help yourself. If you speak before they make you the scapegoat, people might listen. 2 days later, Evelyn Knox appeared on a live international broadcast, confirming the authenticity of the leaked files. She detailed Mosaic's internal manipulation strategies, how they silenced scientists, fabricated peer reviews, and weaponized philanthropy as a smokescreen. The fallout was swift. The Mosaic Foundation was dismantled. Arrest, warrants were issued. Governments opened environmental investigations across 6 continents, but not all victories were public. Henrik Voss disappeared. Julian believed he'd been placed into witness protection. Anaya Pot's research was officially republished with full credit restored, and she accepted a professorship in Bhutan, choosing peace over revenge. As for Sabrina, Cambridge offered to reinstate her with full honors. She declined. 1 year later, Sabrina Palmer stood in a quiet classroom in Nairobi, chalk in hand, explaining the chemistry of soil reclamation to a group of bright-eyed students. She taught now, not because she had lost her place in research, but because she had redefined it. After the scandal, she'd used the settlement funds from Mosaic's Forced Reparation Fund to launch the Mosaic Mirror Initiative, an independent platform to support whistleblowers and fund uncorrupted environmental science. She still bore scars, reputational, emotional, but they had become part of her armor. Julian occasionally lectured beside her, and Evelyn, after testifying in multiple trials, became the ethics officer of a new green tech startup. One afternoon, a student asked, "Professor Palmer, do you miss being famous?" She smiled. "Not all mirrors are made to flatter. Some are meant to reveal." She gestured to the soil samples on the bench. "What matters is what we grow after the truth." And with that, Sabrina turned back to the board, chalk in hand, ready to teach the next generation how to rebuild a world from the pieces left behind.